Time for My Boat.
One of the tougher decisions you'll face with electronics when you're having problems is weighing out the cost of repairing versus replacement. In a lot of cases, repairing the older equipment is about as expensive as replacing it with the newer technology with the added features. So today on My Boat, we'll take you through doing a re on a radar system on this 44 Sea Ray. Our project boat had a vintage radar system that was past its prime. A failing magnetron was creating poorly defined and fuzzy targets on a mono CRT display. So with tools in hand, Bob McConnell and I made fast work of disconnecting wiring and removing the display. While I accessed the cables and mounting studs from down below, Bob opened up the radar's pedestal to disconnect the wiring. After removing the nuts and bolts from below, the old array was removed from the flybridge hardtop. Our original plan was to pull a fish through for installing the new cable as we pulled out the old, but the old cable was bonded in place, so we had to take the time to fish a new cable from the helm through to the hardtop following a new route. Depending on your boat, routing the large diameter cable from the display to the radar array may be the toughest part of the project, but after an hour, we had the new cable fished through. After a quick inspection of the new radar pedestal, our first task was to install the studs, first greasing them with the supplied anti-seize paste, then tightening them in place using 2 nuts. Back up in the hardtop, the hole for the old radar array cable was filled with marine-grade caulking and the radar pedestal was passed up. Prior to setting in place, the self-adhesive washers were slid down the studs and the backing removed. Our project skipped a step here since the holes from the mounting studs matched. But on a new install, a paper template is supplied to accurately position the pedestal and drill the holes. With the pedestal in place, the washers and lock nuts were installed from below, again coating the studs with anti-seize and then tightening them firmly. Next, after taping off the gel coat, a hole saw was used to drill a hole for the array cable into the raceway into the hardtop. From below, the cable was fished through the hardtop and out the hole. Next, we had to slide the gland nut, washer and grommet on the cable, then insert the cable into the scanner pedestal and secure it in place inside with the cable clamp and tighten the gland nut by hand. Moving to the wiring, each of the data wires in the coaxial cable and shield had to be inserted in the 8-way plug in the order outlined in the instructions. The main power wires were connected next, then the plug and the data wire plug were connected in. With the wiring complete, the pedestal was closed up and the bolts secured snugly. The final task up top was to carefully place the open array over the mounting shaft, taking care not to damage the coaxial pin. With the array in the correct orientation, it was secured with locking washers and nuts. Back at the helm, a pre-made plexiglass trim was placed over the old mounting position to compensate for the smaller display. The holes were first pre-drilled, and then using the screws with buttons to hide the hardware. Next, the display is placed in position and the mounting holes drilled. With the display removed, the supplied gasket is placed over the unit and the display set back in. You'll need a helper to hold the trim ring in place from behind the dash while you tighten down the bolts to secure the display unit. With the display secured, the bezel is snapped into place. Next up, I prepared the wiring for the power supply. Power to both the radar array and display must be from the same source, so I used large gauge marine grade connectors to combine the power leads and plug them into the existing 12-volt power supply from the helm's panel. The final connector was crimped on the green ground wire in the radar cable so it could be connected into the boat's bonding system. With the wiring prepped, it was a simple matter of plugging in the data cable into the back of the display, then connecting the power leads and the ground bonding wires. The final task was to tidy up the wiring and secure the extra cable with quick ties. With everything cleaned up, it was time to turn on the display, then power up the open array scanner and begin fine-tuning the settings. This week's My Boat project really wasn't that difficult since we were removing an old system and reinstalling an upgraded, improved radar system. Now, if you want to take on this project from scratch on your boat, it's really not that difficult. Just follow the instructions carefully, take your time, plan it out, and you should be able to handle the job.